I come to you with the second coming of Christ, the resurrection of the Christ within you, a revelatory commentary on the original teachings of Jesus by Paramahansa Yogananda. This is his interpretation of the Gospels of Jesus. And I've already read the first volume. There's 72 teachings. You can pick up at any time. They're independent teachings. So I'm on Discourse 46. There's a dog in here making noise. I'm reading the Gospels to all the creatures. I read the Gospels to some humpback whales in Maui last month. And now I'm reading to some canines. Let's see if they care. Okay. If ye have faith, nothing shall be impossible unto you. And when they were come to the multitude, there came to him a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic and sore vexed. For oft times he is falleth into the fire, and oft into the water. And I brought him to the disciples, and they could not cure him. Then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither to me. Matthew 17, verse 14 through 17. O ye generation of people filled with ignorance and without self-realization of spirit, I have been so long with you, notwithstanding your lack of appreciation. How long shall I bear with you your agonies, and also take unto myself your evil karma? Nonetheless, bring your sons to me. In the above, Jesus expressed the sorrow of endurance that attended the constant overburdening of himself with the evil karma of others. As a rich man might have a debtor from imprisonment by assuming the debt himself, so great souls by their will can work out the karmic sufferings of others by taking it into their own souls. But this fortuitous blessing by the intervening presence of a master happens only to repentant persons whose otherwise good karma attracts this mitigation of their karmic obligations. Further, Jesus knew that by accumulating the evil karma or sinful actions of others, it would ultimately be at the high cost of his own life. He offered up man's dearest possession, his body, for working out the karma of others by the terrible ordeal of his crucifixion. And then by superior soul force, he resurrected his body and proved his victory over all constraints of nature. Even though Jesus realized that to cure the serious, deep-seated condition of the man's possessed son meant that he himself would have to carry much evil karma of the boy, still, out of his infinite compassion, Jesus agreed to heal him. And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Matthew 17, verse 18. Jesus remonstrated, O wicked, disembodied spirit, condemned to be deaf and dumb in the astral world because of your evil karma, why are you conjuring more evil karma for yourself by vilely possessing this child before me, instead of rightly working out the effects of your past evil actions? I command you to come out of his body and to possess him no more. Many are the torments that disembodied wicked spirits may experience in the after-death state according to their store of evil accumulated in earth life. In this instance, Jesus recognized a malevolent spirit that was karmically deaf and dumb, who possessed an earthly body in order to regain auditory and vocal powers. However, so exacting is the immutable law of cause and effect that the vocal cords and auditory nerves of the unlawfully possessed body, though otherwise healthy, was rendered useless. Owing to this boy's being possessed since childhood, his nervous system was completely exhausted. Thus, when the devilish spirit was cast out of him by Jesus, the child appeared as dead, But Jesus took him by the hand, charging him with the cosmic energy as he lifted him up, and immediately the cured boy was fully restored. Then came the disciples to Jesus apart and said, "Why could not we cast him out?" And Jesus said unto them, "Because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, Remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. Howbeit this kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting." Matthew 17, verses 19 through 21. And Jesus answering saith unto him, Have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall receive them. Mark 11, verse 22 through 24. Jesus explained to his disciples, to cast out the devil spirit long lodged in the afflicted boy required steady faith. When you witnessed the frightfulness of his condition and failed to heal him by 1 or 2 attempts, you disbelieved. Your wavering faith was unable to draw suffering power from the cosmic source of all accomplishment and healing. Sufficient, not suffering. Sufficient power. Through my Christ consciousness perception, I declare unto you that if by inner divine communion you have even the smallest seed as a grain of mustard, of real intuitive conviction of God's power, any mountain of difficulty will be removed at your command. But I strongly admonish you that this all-accomplishing power of faith cannot come by mere belief or intellectual conviction, nor by half-hearted or intermittent efforts of self-realization. It comes by constant, intense prayer demands for cosmic consciousness in deep meditation, and by non-attachment to the body through the discipline of moral living and regular purificatory fasting. When you are intuitively guided by communion with God in ecstatic meditation, your will and faith will then be one with the Father's limitless power. Jesus sought to awaken in languid man the cosmic conviction possessed by God, the power of his absolute knowing, by which he created stars, planets, human beings, the universe, and everything therein. Through his self-evolved power of divine will and self-evolved confidence in the all-creative force of his thought and ideations, he has frozen into being the infinite manifestations of matter and intelligence. God knows by the incontrovertible immediacy of omniscience that he is all-powerful. With this almighty conviction, nothing is impossible to him. Whatever he thinks he can do by divine fiat or by so ordering the workings of his cosmic laws. Being made in God's image, man too has the omnipotent will and self-confidence hidden within his soul, empowering him to create or accomplish anything he can imagine. When one dislodges from his soul the octopus grip of human habits and hereditary beliefs, replacing impossibility consciousness with the realized power of faith, one gains over the natural order a supernatural sovereignty. It is by deep and deeper meditation that one can unite his intuitive imagining power with the almighty conviction of God and realize the relation of intuition and matter. All manifestations of cosmic vibration are controlled and guided by God's ideated intuitions. When, by God communion, the convictions of advanced souls are attuned with God's conviction of his own omnipresent omnipotence, that faith creates vibrations so potent that if so willed, it can literally uproot a mountain and cast it into the sea. Jesus was thus not speaking merely allegorically. He actually meant that even as God causes mountains to rise from beneath the seas or continents to sink from sight, so liberated souls who are in tune with Him are in touch with that unlimited power, as was Jesus, and also Bhagavan Krishna, of whom it is told, he once suspended an entire mountain in the air like a protective umbrella to shelter his people from a devastating storm. The consciousness of an ordinary man is omnipresent in the microcosm of his body. So he can will that consciousness to move any part of the body. Similarly, one who has faith, realization of his identity with the omnipresent cosmic consciousness, can, by divine will, govern any aspect of the macrocosmic body of the universe. But he is unlikely to find an engaging interest in rearranging Lord's cosmic scenery. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. The phenomena of material creation can but apprehend by man's intellect and senses, but not the supersensory, astral, and causal vibratory forces that underlie and structure the physical world. The light of intuition is required to reveal the subtle workings of the heavenly powers. That light is the soul's realization of truth, which expresses itself through intuitive knowing, and the resultant conviction is faith. Thus, faith is the term used by Jesus to denote that which perceives the invisible cosmic creative powers and God as the final substance. Faith in intuitive knowledge of cosmic consciousness as the prime mover of all atomic creation bestows power to act on any portion of the universal structure. The sense-dependent, matter-worshipping man is a consummate infidel, disavowing because he has no evidence of things not seen, the invisible forces of an invisible God that would bestow on him all things hoped for. Nevertheless, even ignorance-blinded individuals possess some degree of faith, a latent intuition of God's presence and power within that gives birth to all human hopes and incentive to achieve. The unconscious faith is the secret fountainhead of man's expectations of fulfillment of his copious dreams. Human hope, if used rightly as motivation to cultivate higher potentials of mind, imagination, and will, ultimately produces true faith, the intuitive realization of the divine powers of the soul. Lord, increase your faith, the disciples petitioned Jesus. Even a little intuitive faith can accomplish wonders, far more than mere belief or the enhancing power of imagination. One who does not meditate or contact God might stand in front of a tree and with all his human belief, abetted by a strong imagination, say, I command you, be thou plucked by thy root, and be thou planted in the sea. Naturally, it will not do so. Miracles cannot be demonstrated by conditional belief or imagination, but by uniting the self with God. There is a way to cultivate belief until it becomes faith or absolute conviction. Belief is the initial recipient attitude of the mind necessary for planting the seed of a hoped-for outcome. As a successful farmer learns the laws of planting for a good harvest, so a truth-seeking individual must learn how to cultivate the soil of belief so that it may yield the desired results. When the seed of his aspiration is continuously watered with belief in the self and in the intercession of a master, as when the disciples appealed to Jesus, it sprouts into faith that the desired results will inevitably be accomplished. Jesus knew the laws of truth. He was equipped with Almighty God consciousness and knew that anyone who trusted in him and his words would create a channel through which he could easily transfer to the supplicator the powers within his Christ consciousness. Ordinary spiritual teachers cannot surcharge people as Jesus did, because they themselves are not always convinced of the power of divine will and intuition-born faith, and are thus lesser conduits for its transmission to others. Jesus taught from his own experience and example that soul intuition and its supremely accomplishing power of faith develop in those who meditate deeply and do not stimulate body consciousness by constant dependence only on material sustenance. When the soul continuously remains identified with the delusive dream body, it puts on the weaknesses of that mass of matter and forgets to exercise the all-powerful faith hidden within himself. Faith is lost by sorrowing over or being elated by the changing conditions of sickness and health that invade the body. The soul can neither be sick nor healthy, for it is made of the bodiless image of perfect God. Anyone who is jubilant because of the dream health of the body, or grieved by its dream sickness, or who is afraid of dis-ease and distress when it comes, is dreaming the cosmic delusion and is not inwardly free. Hence, every devotee should meditate on his transcendent blissful self and preserve that ever newly joyous state of consciousness. It is greater to realize the perfection of the soul, which is immortal, than just to acquire by mental power health of the temporal body, which has to be cast away at the call of death. When the consciousness of the devotee is finally united in cosmic consciousness, which sustains and controls the medley of dream forms in the cosmic dream universe, then through that consciousness, all things are possible to him. Jesus stressed to his disciples that the way to rouse the power of faith is to realize the presence of God within one's own self. To produce difficult supernatural healings or other miraculous phenomena, it is necessary first to accomplish the supreme miracle, uniting the soul with God to the conscious satisfaction of the self and the Divine Father. It is in the nature of faith to create anything it wants. One who believes very strongly in the fulfillment of a desire will sooner or later find it come to pass. But before one can move mountains, he must be able to demonstrate that divine power in little accomplishments in life. One should develop faith by working it to resolve minor difficulties. He will thereby prepare himself to cut through the Gordian knots of life's most recondite troubles. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall receive them. Those who concentrate prayerfully and continuously on any goal will see that no matter how daunting its attainment, they will be led to the means of receiving what they seek. One strong faith can work miracles by superimposing helpful thoughts in the brains of others. For example, before seeking employment or negotiating for something desired, one should concentrate his thoughts in prayer strongly in a positive way. God will respond by dropping into the minds of others those thoughts that are in harmony with whatever one is seeking. It is true that this is not direct materialization as Christ was able to demonstrate. Still, strong thoughts can create conditions in kind. They set in motion the minds of others who will later step forward to assist in realizing the goal one is visualizing. And when faith becomes very powerful, God himself will so order the sought-for attainment. Why not? He created everything in the beginning by special creation. He told the flowers to be flowers and the water to be water and electrons to be electrons. If anyone can image his wants, and will them with indomitable strength, and unwaveringly believe that ye receive them, then ye shall have them, but not otherwise. It is helpful to practice cultivating concentrated visualization. One way is to sit quietly in a totally darkened room and visualize the surroundings. Try to think of all the various items in that room, mentally seeing them in minute detail. Then turn on the light and see how accurately and completely you are able to identify the decor while sitting in the dark. Now turn out the light again and visualize everything in another room. Concentrate deeply until you see every corner and every object in that room. This simple practice works. As one develops the power of visualization, it can, within reason, bring to pass anything one wishes. Nearly everyone at some time has had the experience of attaining something that they had long envisioned and wished for, even though fulfillment was unlikely. Concentration is the key, along with faith. However, concentration and visualization alone are not sufficient. Merely to think of oneself as having the status of a millionaire will not make it so. In addition to positive thoughts, one must have adamant willpower and unshakable faith. The will must be made so strong that it can bring whatever one visualizes into reality through one's applied, concerted efforts. Remember, God helps him who helps himself. One's goals must be within the bounds of wisdom. When Jesus urged unfaltering belief as the way to achieve what one asked for in prayer, he did not mean that if all people prayed and thoroughly believed, they would be as rich as Croesus within a year. Their desire would be granted. They could not so expeditiously change their habits, the karma of their present and past lives, and their environmental opportunities just by prayer and belief, to suddenly become opulent. According to the present karmic conditions on earth, such a happening is impossible. Human prosperity requires human meriting and is conditioned by environment. There are in this world scores of people who have superior mentalities and more willpower than Henry Ford, but they are not placed in a similarly favorable environment with the same karmic background that made it possible for Henry Ford to amass his fortune. In fact, the average person of today will likely have to work hard for many more lives before the law of financial evolution would permit him to enter the millionaire class. All human achievements have to be karmically earned, all human faculties of merit acquired. There are many abilities to be cultivated besides that of making money, many forms of karmic evolution more important to one's welfare than financial evolution. Nevertheless, by prayer, meditation, and good actions, all human beings can develop spiritually and attain communion with God and intuitive conviction of His almighty presence within themselves. Because man, as the immortal soul, is made in the image of God, he can, in a short time, even within one life, regain his consciousness of oneness with the divine. Anyone established in that unity can make himself immeasurably wealthy and powerful if he wants to be. But, paradoxically, material gain is never a goal of an enlightened man. Jesus realized, I and my Father are one. He could perform miracles, heal the sick, and raise the dead because he was established in his identity with God. Sometimes people pray unwisely or irrationally, asking for things their karma and stage of evolution do not permit them to have at present, believing that their prayers will be fulfilled. But when their desires are not granted, their belief, which was in fact more of an expression of their importunate wants, rather than an exercise in faith, turns into doubt about the efficacy of prayers and the existence of a caring God who responds to man's needs. People blunder into the negative state of false reasoning because they take the saying of Jesus, "All things whatsoever ye shall seek in prayer, believing ye shall receive," without its context. If ye have faith and doubt not. One must have faith, not blind belief, but intuitive conviction of the omnipotent presence of God within the enlightened self, and doubt not that his presence and power are within. If one first has this intuitive realization of God through meditation and communion, then one cannot have doubts about the responsive immediacy of his almighty power. Therein lies the truth of Jesus' words. After attaining God consciousness, then whatever one prays and believes, he can accomplish. These words of Jesus instruct believers in prayer that because of the instability of their faith, there is no assurance that all prayers will be answered in the manner desired. So long as one is in a state of disunion with God, it is not enough merely to believe and pray laboriously. The devotee should first seek contact with God, and even after experiencing God communion, he must take care to believe, shall not doubt in his heart, that whatever he desires, as he prays, is even then coming to him through the almighty power of God. Then he shall receive it. A human beggar receives a beggar's pittance, but a divine son who is one with God receives the son's share. That is why man, as a human beggar, should not expect his prayers for the divine inheritance of great powers of fulfillment to be granted. But when by meditation man dissociates himself from his physical limitation and concentrates on the unlimited power of his soul, then he acknowledges his immortality and changes his status from that of a deluded mortal subsisting on the chance crumbs of his karma to that of a divine sonhood with heaven and earth at his command. The follower of the scientific path of freedom from material limitation works at developing mental power. By yoga techniques of meditation, affirmation, and visualization, and by unshakable willpower and faith, the power of mind can gradually be made to exceed the delusion-imposed limitation of body consciousness. When the thoughts are brought under control, they become veritable miracle workers. The advancing devotee can use that mind power to heal the body and to relieve its suffering. It is tragic to think of persons who endure years and years of cancer or other forms of wretchedness. Man's susceptibility to suffering comes through ignorance of his innate divinity. How indolently he neglects the development of the power that can master the body and keep it in the palm of the hand of his soul. By control of the mind, he could become indifferent to the condition of the body, in health as well as disease, even as a person under anesthetic can be operated on without feeling any pain. The germ of every trouble starts in the mind, yet in that mind is also the infinite power that most persons have never used. We are children of God, and all of his powers are latent within us. We must never part with those powers by supinely accepting domination by the mortal self. Life is not just prosperity and health. Life is battle. St. Francis was blind and suffered numerous ailments and deprivations, yet he was able to heal the sick and raise the dead and to rejoice in communion with God and Christ. Those who realize their oneness with God become inwardly free from the seeming ills of this dream life, and behold health and sickness, gain and loss, life and death, only as interesting phases of the dream. Of course, it would be foolish to presume such aboveness until one actually realizes that all matter is energy, and that energy is the thought of God. One who strikes his dream head against a dream wall will get a dream fracture. The body is man's cross, and he has to bear it bravely and mentally rise above its complaints. Those who love the body and are attached to its happiness rebel against God as soon as suffering comes. Jesus was nailed to the cross and was suffering with all his sensibility, yet he prayed, "Father, forgive them." He could have destroyed his enemies with the power in his spiritual eye. He had the divine forces of God at his command. But by this singular act of love, he demonstrated the greatest miracle as one proclaimed by God as a true divine Son. In Jesus, there was no trace of egoity, with his body identified attachments and enslavement to their desires, anger, vengefulness. By gradual steps, each man has a sole destiny to rise to a Christ-like life, to practice the universal Christ principles at all times. Life is a laboratory and testing ground in which man is to learn from his divine potentials how to be happy even when bruised by trials and grievous offenses. Man's tests are not sent by God as punishment. His law is not an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. If God fights man, then he is not God. He knows he got us into this mess, and he wants us to get out. And the way is to endure our tests and conquer. Each person must learn to bear his cross while never losing faith in God. When the body suffers, and one is yet able to say, "I am all right," he is transcending the body. In this world, nature constrains man to live as an ordinary human being, but within we must be gods. Jesus, like ordinary man, ate and slept and wept. In a moment of weakness and pain on the cross, he cried out in his humanness, "My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" But inside he was divine. He had bridged that gulf between human life and the divine life, and he was established in his divinity. God made every man in his image, so that by that potential he too might overcome his many tests and become established in his innate divinity. Life is an anomaly, but no matter how hard it is to understand, man ought not to blame God for his ills. The book of life is like a novel. It is read with laughter and weeping and excitement, almost to the end, with still many questions left unanswered, until in the last chapter, all the puzzles are solved. This book of life is written by the master novelist. The full meaning of his masterpiece will not be understood by anyone who has not himself become one with the master, able then to read his thoughts between the divinely scripted lines. Until you know the wisdom and love that interlaces the plot of life, have faith in God. Live the life divine. Conquer bad habits and do not cater all the time to the body. Give it to God. The devotee says, "Lord, you are the creator and the owner of this body. So it is for you to help me care for it, and I know that you will." A person with 100 years of prosperity and health, but with no spiritual realization, is not as fortunate as one who is crippled, deaf, blind, and forsaken, but who has God in his heart. To meditate and practice Kriya Yoga is a scientific way of solving the mystery of life and its inscrutable problems, by first solving the mystery of the self and its relationship with spirit. Gradually, one attains to the science of the spirit, comes power to do all miracles. To anyone trained in the methods of the masters, the knowledge of the masters comes, fulfilling one's hopes, the hopes of all mankind, to set the spirit free. If ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, immortal words, spoken to shatter the bonds of doubt enslaved mortals and rouse their native all-conquering will. Beware, O ye mountains, stand not in my way. Your ribs will be shattered and tattered today. To those who know God, everything is possible. God who strews star flowers of Milky Ways in the garden of space, God who lights the spark of life in the lamps of countless creatures, God who created every atom and feeling and thought in all sentient beings. What could be beyond his power? And what could be denied his devotees who are one with him? Jesus meant exactly this, removing difficulties by affirmations, visualization, and belief in the power of the mind, as persons of strong willpower do, is nothing unusual. What Jesus taught is far greater, to tune the human will to the divine will, and thereby destroy mortal limitations. This can be accomplished only by conscious communion with the all-powerful God and by realizing the inseparable union of soul and spirit. Those who have such communion can never doubt that the almighty power of God resides in their hearts. They know that with divine inevitability, whatever they wish will be fulfilled, will materialize, and whatever they say shall come to pass. Amen.